Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that have, well, not all of the books, some of the books that have made me cry. I have a very large list, but I've narrowed it down to just the books that have, like by the end of it, I was bawling my eyes out crying. I've also rated them, and I'm going to show you each one from the one that made me cry the least to the one that made me cry the most. There are 16 books on this list, and I'm going to start with the one that made me cry the least. So number 16 is Her Daughter's Dream by Francine Rivers. This is volume 2 in the Marta's Legacy series. It's a very heartwarming series of 4 generations of mothers and daughters raising their children, and then those children growing up. And it shows from both of their perspectives, and then how that affects them in their relationship with their own children, how everything just kind of is a chain reaction. It's very heartwarming while it has its troubles. I enjoyed it. I like it because of the characters. But by the end of the duology, in Her Daughter's Dream, something very tragic happened, and it took me completely by surprise. By the end of it, I was so sad and I was crying my eyes out. And I've read this series twice. Both times I did cry. And while I'm not going to say too much about the book because of spoilers, I would just like to say that these characters go along with their own goals and motivations throughout years and years, decades. And by the end, it all comes together with either a failure or a success. But one of them takes, just pays the ultimate price, and it's so sad. The next book that made me cry is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. I know that a lot of people have read this book and have cried, and they love it. This book has resonated in my heart, not for its depth or anything, just because the book was really sad. That's really the only reason. Aside from that, I'm not a huge fan of the book. You can like it though. It's fine. But yes, it is very sad. Even if you aren't a huge fan, it's heartbreaking. It's horrible. I'm finding this really hard because I have to explain to you guys why I cried, but I also can't give away spoilers. So I don't know exactly what I'm doing. Hopefully I'm not just repeating myself by going, oh yeah, this book, it was so sad. It made me cry. And it's amazing. And that's it. I really hope I'm not doing that. I'm going to try and broaden my vocabulary. Maybe. Next book is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This book blew up about 2 years ago when the movie came out. Before that, Patrick Ness had already been kind of a big deal. This was the first and so far the only book I've picked up by him. And as soon as I started it, I started to realize why people loved it so much. It's like a chilling story, and not only is the story just chilling in the concept, but also the pictures and the style of writing is just chilling also. If you guys have not read this book, you totally should. It's so good. And you know the ending going in. You already know how it's going to end and that your heart is going to break. But that doesn't, the way that it goes about it, it gives grief a whole new definition. The scene that makes you cry is also one of the most chilling parts. Next book is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I know that this book is very divided in that some people like it and some people don't. I'm on the side of people who do like it, but I do see why people don't. I mean, aside from the plot twist at the end, and I've heard that plenty of people have predicted it, this book doesn't have a whole lot of value. And honestly, the people who do like it, I don't know if they cried, but I did. Next book that I have on my list is also very chilling. I must just I don't know, these 3 books that I had were all very chilling and very sad. But it is Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson. This is a Peter Pan retelling of Tiger Lily and Peter Pan's love story before Wendy comes, and it's told from the point of view of Tinkerbell. I think that is an amazing concept in and of itself. but the story like layers it with chill, as I said. Throughout the entire book, you're just sort of awed by the gruesome atmosphere of this world that you find Peter Pan and Tiger Lily living in, and also Tiger Lily herself is such a mysterious character, especially from the point of view of Tinkerbell. It's so amazing. But then the ending of this book, and it's hard to wrap your head around because it's actually a happy ending, but you're crying over grief, and there's a letter in the back that you read, and it's so horrible. For this book, I don't have a physical copy of, but it's Summer by Karen Kingsbury. I think I'm going to do a separate video about thoughts on Karen Kingsbury and Christian fiction in another video, but for now, I'll just praise her for a moment, because she is a good author, and she's made me cry a lot in a couple different of her books. I'm mentioning 2 of them today. This book is Summer. It is the second book in the Someday series, which is part of the Redemption Saga. You start out the book with 2 sisters they both get pregnant at the same time, but they both go to get their ultrasound done together. They're really close sisters, and they find out that one of the babies has a problem, and so the whole book takes place over 9 months of these pregnancies, and by the end, something happens with one of the babies. One of the babies has a problem, and I'm not spoiling anything because it says this in the summary. So, but yeah, and it's really sad, and you just have to deal with just crying and watching this happen to a little innocent baby. Next book I have is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I did not expect to cry for this book. I didn't really know what it was about going into it, but by the end I was attached to every single one of the characters. There's 4 main characters. Well, I say every single character, all characters but one. This story is from the point of view of 4 different characters during 1945, and they all end up on the Wilhelm Gustloff. When all their stories collide, things happen, and it makes for a very sad ending. And I'm not gonna say anything because this book is so good. You need to go read it. I'm gonna reread this. I'm totally gonna reread this sometime really soon. Oh my gosh, this book is good, and it makes you cry. It's just so good. Next book I have on my list is the other Karen Kingsbury book I was talking about, which is Ever After. It follows 2 people falling in love. I don't remember their names because honestly, I actually didn't even read the whole book. I got about a quarter of the way into it and was extremely bored, and I wasn't attached to any of the characters. Someone had recommended this book to me beforehand, so I knew that it was really sad, and I was curious to know what was going to happen. So I jumped ahead to find out what was so sad. And what happens in the end ripped my heart out, and there's not many books that I've cried more for than this one. So even though I didn't ever technically read it, there's no way I couldn't put it on this list because it made me cry so much. Next book I have on my list is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This is one of my favorite books of all times, and part of the reason why is because it made me cry. Also because I loved every single character, and the plot was engaging, even though some people think it's a bit messy, and I can see why they think that. But I was very engaged throughout the entire plot because of these characters. And the characters are the very reason that I cried so much. I remember staying up till 1 o'clock the night I got this to finish it, and crying my eyes out for the rest of the night until the morning. Actually, no, I didn't, but the point is there. I cried a lot, as I did for every other book on this list. Alright, books number 5, 6, and 7 on this list is the Hunger Games series. Anyone who has heard of the Hunger Games knows that this series rips your heart out. The Hunger Games is about, the first one is about children killing themselves. Catching Fire is about the Hunger Games again, except so many more stakes on the line because Peeta and Katniss are being ripped apart. And the saddest one, Mockingjay, is about everybody dying because of a revolution. This series is just so sad because you take two books, to get attached to these characters, and then all of a sudden they're gone. And they win, but at a huge price. And it's more than just death that makes you sad in this book and the movies. It's Katniss also, and how she ends up makes you just really sad. And like you want to see the girl again from the beginning of the series, but also she was so broken and the world around her was so broken in the beginning that maybe this one is better, but it's not, because she's even more broken, but the world around her is better. And her being broken is the price that the world had to pay, and so many others being broken and dying along the way is the price that the world had to pay to fix all the horrific things that were wrong. And then even Plutarch at the end says that it will all happen again. And the thought is just so heartbreaking. This series has like no hope in it except for the children. I love this series so much. I understand that people don't like it. There are people who don't like it, but I think that they tend to ignore the very deep themes that this book explores, and Suzanne Collins did a very good job with this series. It's amazing. Next book that made me cry is also a movie, which I've watched over and over and over and over again since I've read the book, and that is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Oh my gosh, when I read this book, I read it in 6 days, and it was so sad. It follows like 15 to 20 years, I don't exactly remember, of this one man named Jean Valjean. And it also follows along with several other people that he meets throughout his life after he's released from a prison. This is France in the early 1800s, by the way. Because it's early France, there's so much tragedy and heartbreak going on, and poverty and stuff. And there's ruthless characters, and there's good characters. Bad things and good things happen to all of them. But a lot of them end in tragedy because there's a revolution in it. And there's death, lots of it. But you know, it's all okay. No, it's not! This next book represents the entire series. It is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, just for the entire Harry Potter series. Everyone knows there's lots of death in this series. There's lots of death just in the first book. I don't think any of it, no, I know none of it made me cry in the first book, but by the time you get around to the 4th book, and the 5th book, and the 6th book, and the 7th book, you're bawling your eyes out, and you're losing characters left and right. One of the books that made me cry the most was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and I remember reading it in the car on the way to my grandmother's, who lives 4 hours away. And so I was sitting there reading it, getting to the part that's really sad and usually makes people cry. And I was really sad and about to cry, but like, I'm not going to cry in the car. I'm not going to cry in the car. I didn't cry, but for the rest of the night, I just felt empty because I hadn't, and just in pain. It was a horrible experience, but at least I didn't have to do that with the 7th book, which I cried loads for, more than any of the other books. However, Goblet of Fire is a close second. I cried a lot for Goblet of Fire, so yeah. The second to last book that I have on here is Golden Daughter by Anne Elizabeth Stengel. This actually is supposed to represent the entire series. I did cry the most for this book, though. It is the last book in the series. This series is so vast, and you get so attached to many of the characters throughout it. And while there's actually not a whole lot of death, just so many things happen, especially in this book. It's the biggest book out of them all, and there's just stuff that happens. Oh my gosh, people need to read this. I don't know why they haven't yet. The next book on this list, I've only read once. I need to read it again though, but I'm scared of the emotional scarring that I will go through a second time if I read it. I couldn't stop thinking about this book for days and putting myself in the situations that the characters had to put themselves in and figuring out what I would have done in that situation, and just the situations that these characters had to go through and the choices they had to make are ones that nobody should have to. But anyways, without letting you wait any longer, it is Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. I'm not going to say anything else about this book. I've said all I'm going to say. It's sad. You should go read it. It's fairly popular, so maybe you have already read it. If so, oh my gosh, are you still alive? And there you have it. Those are all of the books that made me cry my eyes out and tore my heart in half, and that I need to read again, even though I'm really scared of the emotional scarring. But oh my gosh, I need to read every single one of these books again because I really do love them. If you would like to read any of those books, go check them out. I would definitely recommend the Tales of Ghoststone Wood series, obviously Harry Potter and the Hunger Games, and Codename Verity. Those are my top ones, my favorites. Salt to the Sea is also really good. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you for the next one, and bye!